If you've ever spent any time with Greek mythology, chances are you've noticed something strange. The characters in these stories often know the names of the monsters and villains they face, but they almost never say them out loud. And that's not an accident. Today we're going to dig into why. Because when you look closely, this isn't just some quirky detail in an old legend. It says something deep about human fear, and honestly, about human wisdom too. In ancient Greece, a name wasn't just a label. It was believed to be the very essence of who or what something was. Knowing someone's name meant you understood their true nature. In some ways, it even gave you power over them. And in the world of gods and monsters, that made a name both a key and a vulnerability. That's exactly why certain beings were not to be named out loud. The clearest example is Hades, ruler of the underworld. Now, people often call him the god of death, but he was really more like the king of everything that lies beneath. And yet, the ancient Greeks would go out of their way to avoid saying his name. Instead, they called him Pluton, which roughly means, the wealthy one. The reason? They believed that speaking his name out loud was like sending him a personal invitation, like you were calling death itself to your door. It's no coincidence that temples built in his honor were almost non-existent. People didn't pray to him directly. They spoke of him sideways, carefully, the way you might talk around something you're afraid to look at. Now, when most people think about names and power in Greek mythology, they think of Medusa. She's the figure with snakes for hair whose gaze could turn anyone to stone. And yes, her appearance is terrifying. But what's really worth paying attention to is how Perseus dealt with her. He never looked at her directly. He used the reflection in his polished shield to guide himself. And according to the legend, he never called out her name. Not once, because to call her name would be to draw her attention, to make her turn. And if she turned and looked at you, that was the end of it. Speaking the name wasn't just risky. It was treated as a kind of summons. But here's what makes this even more interesting. This belief didn't only apply to monsters. The ancient Greeks also feared speaking the names of the gods carelessly. If someone was extraordinarily beautiful, people would avoid praising them too directly. They'd whisper the compliment to a tree instead. It sounds strange now, but the idea was to avoid attracting the envy of the gods. Calling on a god's name without reason was seen as a challenge to their authority. And challenges, in Greek mythology, rarely ended well. This thread runs all the way through the story of Achilles. Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Trojan War, was dipped in the river Styx by his mother Thetis to make him nearly invincible. His only weak point, of course, was his heel. But there's another layer here that often gets overlooked. His name is linked to roots meaning grief or pain. In Greek myth, names were often seen as prophecy. So his name didn't just describe him, it foreshadowed him. There's a moment in the legend where Achilles shouts a taunt at Paris, practically daring him to try. And it's not long after that an arrow finds the one place on his body that could be hurt. His name carried a kind of fate with it, and that fate eventually caught up. So where does this idea even come from? The ancient Greeks lived in a world full of things they couldn't explain. Storms, disease, sudden death, disasters with no clear cause. In the face of all that uncertainty, names became a way to hold on. To name something was to have a handle on it, and to leave something unnamed, or to use a substitute word, was a way of keeping it at a safe distance. You can see this same logic still operating today. Theater people avoid saying Macbeth inside a theater. They call it the Scottish play. The superstition has changed forms, but the underlying instinct is exactly the same. Names carry weight, and some things are better left unspoken. But the most striking example of all this in Greek mythology is the story of Oedipus. His name means swollen foot, given to him because his feet were bound when he was abandoned as a baby. But that name ended up meaning so much more. From the moment he was born, the oracle declared that he would kill his father and marry his mother. The harder he tried to escape that fate, the closer he came to fulfilling it. And when the truth finally surfaced, when he understood fully what he had done, he couldn't bear to see the world anymore. He put out his own eyes. His name wasn't just a nickname. It was a blueprint for everything that would happen to him. He was never free of it. And then there's the Sphinx. She stood at the gates of Thebes and posed a riddle to every traveler who passed. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? The answer, of course, is a human being. But look at what she was really asking. She wasn't testing trivia. She was demanding that you understand the nature of your own existence. When Oedipus answered correctly, the Sphinx destroyed herself. He never needed to name her power directly. He saw through it, and that was enough to break it. What all of this points to is something very human. These stories aren't really about magic words or ancient superstitions. They're about how people make sense of a world that feels too big and too unpredictable to control. Naming something gives you a sense of power over it. But some things feel so vast, so dangerous, so unknowable, that giving them a name feels like poking at something you should leave alone. The safer move is to stay quiet, to speak around it, to show a little humility in the face of what you don't fully understand. That impulse hasn't gone anywhere. We still feel it, because a name is never just a sound. It carries an identity, a weight, sometimes even a kind of destiny. And maybe that's worth remembering the next time you say someone's name out loud.